Welcome to my second video on self-love. Today I want to talk about times when we feel like things just aren't going right in our lives, when we feel like that someone or something is taking away our joy. There's a lot of people who feel this way right now, especially with everything that has been happening around us. Sometimes it can feel like that the things happening around us are taking away how we feel inside. So this week I had a client who came in who was very frustrated because I was approaching the subject of lowering his opioid medication. And upon beginning the conversation, he looked at me and said that he was very upset and frustrated that so many people are selling their medications, and because of the things that others were doing illegally, it was preventing him from getting the medication that he needs. And he was very sincere, and he's in expressing his frustration. It was really good for him to fully get it out of his system. So I allowed him some time to explain his frustration. And then when he was finished, I was seeing a correlation, a co-creation that was happening. And I asked him if I could give him a different perspective, and he agreed. So I gave him a couple of stories, and I'll just give you the gist of the stories here. So first I told him about an experience that I had coming back from Hawaii last July. We had gotten stuck on the runway. I couldn't get another flight out for hours, and I was really worried about getting to work because I had a tight schedule to get back to Nashville so that I could make it to the clinic the next day. And through that experience, it was probably over 12 hours at least before they got me a flight out to Chicago. And then when I got to Chicago, it was more of the same. I probably changed gates 8 or 9 times, and I had never really experienced that before, all this gate changing. But it was a different airline I was using for this trip than the one that I normally use. And so through the experience, I found myself very disappointed with the way that the airline was handling the situation. It felt very irresponsible. I was judging them. I was very blameful that they weren't doing their part. I felt like I had done my part as the customer, and they weren't taking care of me. And a lot of things had gone through my mind. There was a lot of frustration, aggravation, anger, because I was concerned about getting back to the clinic, because I knew I had appointments and people waiting for me. Concerned about people getting to the clinic and having to turn around and go back home. Some of my clients, I mean, it's a big deal for them to get to the clinic. They are on a fixed income. So I was taking all that worry upon myself, and it was feeding more into my blame and anger that I was experiencing. So after I told him that story and how it took me 36 hours to get home, then I told him about a story that happened after I got back. So that week, it was a schedule that I had made with some friends of mine to allow them to use the facility to do a documentary scene. And I had decided that I wasn't going to drive out and oversee it. I trusted that everything would be fine. There wasn't much in there that they could hurt. They said they didn't need to use computers or anything like that. So I didn't give it much thought. But the following Monday when we came in, a lot of things were misplaced. Our system had been disconnected, and it ended up being 6 hours before we could see patients, and it was like $1,800 later. And my biggest frustration was, again, the patients waiting that were there for appointments, and I was feeling responsible for their experience, and I was feeling very angry and disappointed with my friends. And I was, trying to understand from their perspective what had happened. There was only one person I had been dealing with, and I don't think that they knew exactly how many people were going to be in the clinic. And through that experience, I realized that the loss of control I was feeling and the overwhelmment I was feeling, the blame that I was feeling was similar to what I had experienced with the airline experience the prior week before. So when I made this connection, I realized it was a vibration of blame. And then I realized that there was a part of me that was blaming myself. And when I made that realization, I sat down and soothed that part within me, soothed the one inside of me who was feeling blameful. It's like an act of self-love to soothe that within yourself. Because when we experience something in our reality, it always means that it's coming from inside first and foremost in order for it to be projected out. So it was what we call a vibrational match. I remember through my journey, I used to hear things like, well, you're a vibrational match. That's why it's happening. And I'm like, but how am I a vibrational match? And it took me a while to start piecing together how I was a vibrational match. And once I started piecing those things together and understanding, I learned how to have better control over it. Because the control that I was seeking wasn't outside of me. It was just something I was carrying inside. And it's simple to acknowledge it and to soothe it and just to be loving to yourself. And when you're loving to yourself, it dissipates the energy. It takes away its power. So in giving him this example, I was trying to point out to him that what he was doing by blaming other people for his situation was creating a similar momentum for him. And as we were talking, his eyes opened a little brighter, and we looked at each other, and I knew he got it. And I know because of that conversation, his life will change. Now, will it change 180 degrees? No, but it will change that vibration, and it's brought it up into his awareness so that when the opportunity comes up to have a choice of whether to stick with that vibration or pick a new one, he will understand what he's doing. He'll have conscious understanding of what he's doing now. So as we were talking, I told him what happened to me after I realized my own circumstances. The following week, I had gone to Subaru, and I was just there for an oil change. And for years, since I had bought the car, I was having oil consumption problems. And when I was there, it just so happened there was a new guy, and we got on the subject of the oil consumption issue, and I wasn't planning to bring it up, but he offered me a oil consumption test, which I had done a half a dozen times. And I'm looking at him like, I really don't have time to keep doing these tests because you guys just keep telling me the same thing, and it's so similar. I know that that's what they're telling you to tell me, and it's not good for me to remain angry. I said, so I've let it go, and I don't blame you. And he said, you know, you really should get it done again because you have till February. Well, in our conversation, I realized I was being nudged, like, this is one of those moments you need to say yes. So I said yes. We started the test, and within 1 week, my light came on like clockwork. I took it in, and it was low by 2 quarts. He comes out and says, well, your consumption test falls within the range that we're allowed to give you a new block. Later, I realized that there was a class action lawsuit. Now, what I also realized through this whole thing was because when I transmuted some of that vibration of blame, it changed my channel. I went from channel 3 of blaming others and situations outside of myself to channel 5, where the answers to the things that I was frustrated over existed, but I couldn't see Channel 5 while I was playing the drum of Channel 3, because on Channel 3 there's only more problems being shown to me. I wasn't being shown the answer. But once I transmuted the blame within me, it put me on the channel where the answers were that I needed. And it just showed up. It was a surprise. I had no idea. And so when he started bringing this to the surface for me, I could feel a little nudge inside of me say yes, say yes. And by saying yes, I got a new block in my car. And I wanted to share that experience with you because there's just so many benefits that have come out of this for me by releasing the blame. And it doesn't mean you won't see situations that are not giving you the opportunity, but that's what they're there for. They're giving you the opportunity to say, hey, I want to keep watching Channel 3, or I want to be on Channel 5 from now on. Trust me, Channel 5 is much more beautiful, much more fun, and much more joyful. Well, I hope you enjoyed my second video, and I hope I kept it short enough this time. The first one was like 20 minutes, and if you're like me, my attention span is only about 10 or 15. So please leave comments below. Any feedback you give really does help me know if I'm getting across my message. And many blessings to you. Namaste.